Hello and welcome to this presentation on alcohol and other drugs. My name is Emily and I'm going to go ahead and kind of explain to you. I'm a peer educator and I'm going to explain what peer education is and then we'll get started. So peer education, what we do is we are a group of BGSU students made up of all different majors who go out to different offices, departments, and organizations on campus, and we give presentations on health and wellness topics. So we give presentations on alcohol and other drugs like you'll hear today, but we also give presentations on stress survival, self-care, nutrition, healthy relationships, sexual assault, bystander intervention. There are lots of them, so if you're interested in learning more, you can visit the BGSU Wellness Connection website. We also have these online presentations available as well. So as I stated, this is the alcohol and other drugs. So this presentation is part of the Be the Creed workshop series. So sessions include shared responsibility for the BGSU community. So it focuses on shared governance, shared responsibility, and shared values. And participants can determine their individual roles in the community, as well as kind of getting an overview of the other sessions that are part of this workshop. So the other sessions that are part of this workshop would include the sexual assault, consent, and bystander intervention presentation, which is also given by peer educators. And then we also have ones that are presented by the Office of Multicultural Affairs Ambassadors on Diversity and Inclusion, and then we also partner with the Center for Leadership and their SLAs for a presentation as well. So if you're interested in learning more about that, feel free to visit the BGSU Wellness Connection website. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with the purpose of this presentation. So the purpose of this presentation is to give students information regarding alcohol and other drugs so they can make healthy and informed decisions. This environment is safe and welcoming so every participant can feel comfortable. And we don't assume that you do or do not consume alcohol or any other drug by participating in this presentation. We just want to give you the information available for you to make healthy and informed decisions. And then we do understand that some of the topics we talk about will be sensitive in nature, so feel free to stop at any point if you need to. And reaching out to some of the resources that are available for the BGSU community. So if you go to the BGSU Wellness Connection website, we have a list of resources there. So these include things like the Health Center, the Counseling Center, psychological services, and a lot more. So feel free to visit that if you need it at any point throughout this presentation or after. So the way that this presentation is kind of set up is we're going to start by talking about alcohol, and then we'll move to talking about marijuana specifically, and then we'll move to talking about other drugs, specifically prescription drugs. So we're going to begin with alcohol. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a game first. So it's a true-false game. So I'm going to read you a statement and then you're just going to decide whether it's true or whether it's false. So our first question is that alcohol can mask your mood. True or false? This is false. So alcohol actually intensifies your moods. So moods such as anger, fear, loneliness, alcohol won't mask these, it will actually intensify these. So it's important to remember that if you're upset or you're stressed about something, drinking alcohol is only going to make it worse. Our next question is, individuals who have a high tolerance are able to drink larger quantities of alcohol without raising their BAC levels as quickly. So this is saying somebody who has a higher tolerance can drink the same amount as someone with a lower tolerance, and the BAC level of the person who has a high tolerance will be lower than the BAC level of the person with a lower tolerance. So this is false. Tolerance is the degree to which your body has adapted to a given blood alcohol content. So each time you drink to impairment, your tolerance will increase, and your body is trying to minimize the impairment at that given BAC. For example, if you drink to a BAC of 0.1 and you took a breathalyzer test, you would have a BAC of a 0.1. Regardless of whether or not you felt like that was your BAC. So even if you have a higher tolerance, you might not feel as drunk at that point, but your BAC will still be the same if you were to drink that amount of alcohol. Our next question is, a Long Island iced tea is considered to be 5 drinks. True or false? So this is true because a Long Island iced tea contains 5 shots. So it has a shot of tequila, vodka, rum, gin, and triple sec. So therefore, it's not the cup that matters, it's the volume of alcohol within the cup. And we'll kind of talk more about that throughout this presentation as well. So our next question is 5% of BGSU students choose not to drink alcohol. True or false? So this is false. According to the 2018 American College Health Association, their National College Health Assessment, 21.1% of BGSU students do not choose to drink alcohol, so much higher than 5%. Our next question is, it is safe to mix alcohol with over-the-counter drugs like aspirin or ibuprofen or other anti-inflammatories. So this is false. This combination can cause serious damage to your stomach for anti-inflammatories such as ibuprofen, and you don't want to mix alcohol with acetaminophen, which is what's found in Tylenol, because that can cause serious damage to your liver and potentially even death. So it's very important that if you are done drinking, that you do not take ibuprofen or aspirin or anything that night, that you wait until that alcohol is out of your system. It's not going to prevent a hangover. It will actually cause more harm than it will good. So our next question is, cold, clammy, and pale skin, slow breathing, vomiting while sleeping, and semi-consciousness are all signs and symptoms of alcohol poisoning. True or false? So this is true. If a person has any of these symptoms, they may be suffering from acute alcohol intoxication. So getting help immediately would be calling 911 and getting someone who can help. So that could be a resident hall advisor, that could also be a BGSU staff member, or it could be someone wherever you're at who is able to help with the situation, and making sure not to leave the person alone. And you can actually turn the person onto their side, which will help prevent choking in case they vomit again. It's always better to be safe than sorry when you're dealing with alcohol poisoning. So even if you are worried about someone, always making that call. Our next question is, mixing alcohol with energy drinks can cause heart failure. True or false? So this is true. Energy drinks are a stimulant, so they speed up your body, while alcohol is a depressant, so it slows down your body. And so what happens when you drink alcohol is typically you'll drink enough alcohol that you will pass out. So energy drinks will mask the effects of the alcohol by giving you a sense of energy and a false sense that you're not intoxicated. So as a result, you may drink more alcohol and become more impaired than you realize, and have an increasing risk of alcohol-attributed harms, including alcohol poisoning and heart failure. So I hope that you were able to learn something from that activity. So we're going to kind of move on a little bit and talk about a standard drink. So does anybody know what would a standard drink be? So a standard drink is approximately half an ounce of pure alcohol. So it's however much of the mixed drink or of the beer, of the wine, that you need to get half an ounce of pure alcohol, so that would be one standard drink. One standard drink typically will take an hour for your body to metabolize. That will obviously depend on your body type and other factors as well, but typically 1 hour is the rule. And so a standard drink would be a 12 ounce of beer, so typically just one beer. It would be 4 to 5 ounces of wine, so a bottle of wine serves 5 glasses, 5 standard drinks, so that can give you a little bit of a representation of what a standard drink might be for wine. When we're talking about a microbrew or a wine cooler, that would be 10 ounces. And then malt liquors would be 8 ounces. And then when we're talking about mixing with liquor, so depending on the proof of the liquor, if we have an 80 proof liquor, it's going to be 1.5 ounces, which is a little more than a shot. Or if we're talking about 100 proof liquor, it will be 1 ounce, which is a little less than a shot. So that will equal one standard drink, which will equal 1 hour of metabolizing for your body to be able to get it out of your body. So thinking about when we talk about like a Long Island or other drinks that may have multiple shots within them, or you may be drinking multiple beers or multiple drinks, that's going to add up to be multiple hours before you are able to be sober again. And so the amount of liquid in your glass, your can, your bottle, that's not really what matters. What matters is the amount of alcohol in the actual drink. So different types of beer, wine, or liquor, they have different types of alcohol contents. And just kind of as we move on, maybe thinking about what role does alcohol play in your social life? So it might have a large role, it might not have a role. Just taking a second to kind of reflect on that. And then kind of reflecting back on these standard drinks to kind of understand, if you do choose to drink alcohol, what that will look like for you. And then we're going to move on a little bit to talk about predatory drugs. So predatory drugs are also called date rape drugs, are substances that are used for the purpose of making a victim passive, submissive, unwilling, unable to resist, or able to make unwanted sexual advances. So typically predatory drugs are going to make people feel like they've consumed large amounts of alcohol, so they can mock severe intoxication. And then predatory drugs can lower a person's inhibitions and leave the person unable to react or give consent. So maybe thinking if you have ever heard of different types of predatory drugs. So a few different predatory drugs would include roofies or rufentanil, which it can be given in a pill or a powder form. And then GHB, which is a liquid, and this is odorless, it's colorless, it might have a slightly salty taste, but you're not going to notice it if it's being mixed with other things. And it may make you feel dizzy, disoriented, drowsy. And then the number one predatory drug is alcohol, because it's easy to get, it's low cost, and consuming large quantities of alcohol can provide a severe intoxication. And then additionally, predatory drugs can cause memory loss or a loss of consciousness. So understanding ways that you can protect yourself from these predatory drugs. So what actions can you take to protect yourself from predatory drugs? So some good ways to protect yourself against predatory drugs are to not leave your drink unattended, and to make sure that you see your drink being poured or made, to avoid group drinks or punch bowls, and do not accept drinks from other people, or opening the can or whatever it is yourself. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the policies on alcohol. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the drinking age is 21. So if you're not 21, you can get in trouble for underage consumption as well as possession and purchasing, which are all illegal. Another reason that you could get in trouble with alcohol would be an OVI, or operating a vehicle. So if you're under the age of 21, the limit is 0.02. And then if you're over the age of 21, the limit is 0.08. Other reasons you could get in trouble include open container, as well as furnishing or providing alcohol to an underage person, having a fake ID, as well as disorderly conduct. And so we'll talk a little bit about BGSU's 3-strike policy. So this can be found in the student handbook if you're interested in more information about it. But for non-disruptive alcohol violations, what we're going to talk about is for your first offense on campus, you would have to participate in an online program, Alcohol EDU Sanctions, as well as pay a fine of $75, and you will not be considered in good standing with the Office of Residence Life. And then for your second offense on campus or your first offense off of campus, which could be downtown, it could be a party, it could be anywhere else, the student has to participate in a group class called Perspectives, facilitated by the Counseling Center. You pay a $100 fee. On top of that $75 you paid for the first one. And you will not be in good standing with the university. And then they can also contact your parents. They'll be notified of the offense. Even if you're 18, they can still contact your parents. And then for your third offense, this can result in possible suspension from BGSU. And the student is required to meet one-on-one with an alcohol and other drug counselor, as well as pay the fine of $200 on top of that $100 that you paid for the second offense, on top of that $75 that you paid for the first offense. So it's just best to follow the BGSU as well as the national policies. So the next thing that we'll talk about is the BGSU medical amnesty policy. So for any BGSU student who's currently enrolled who seeks medical attention for someone in good faith, so by calling 911, and it can be for yourself or for another person, for the overconsumption of alcohol or a drug overdose, you will not be charged with a possession or consumption of alcohol or drugs if the following apply. So basically, if you suspect that you or someone else is in trouble either through alcohol intoxication and alcohol poisoning or through consumption of drugs or a drug overdose, you can call 911 to get help, and you will not get in trouble for the consumption or possession of that drug or alcohol. So depending on the incident, you will not get in trouble for the possession or the consumption of that alcohol or that drug, even if you are underage. However, there are some other things that could apply, such as the Office of the Dean of Students, but you can feel free to read more about this policy and some of the different limitations in the BGSU Student Code of Conduct Handbook. And so we're going to move on a little bit to talk about marijuana now. So first, thinking about what is marijuana. So marijuana is a plant that consists of green, brown, gray mixture of dried, shredded leaves, stems, seeds, flowers. And there are lots of different names, which include like weed, pot, and really what is in marijuana is the THC, which is the primary mind-altering ingredient, and then there's CBD, which is the more medicinal component. So when we talk about the physical and mental effects of marijuana, what are some of the common signs and symptoms that you've heard of people showing when using marijuana? So taking a second to think about that. And then some of the common physical effects include dry mouth, an elevated heartbeat, loss of coordination and balance, slower reaction times, an elevated blood pressure, and munchies. And then it can also cause an interpretation in the changes of smells, and time and sense can seem heightened. Everything is profound, everything is funny. It has a subjective euphoric effect. And ongoing social or psychological experiences while intoxicated with marijuana. So these can include the user's altered state of consciousness and his or her perceptions while intoxicated. It can also cause differential associations and behavioral satisfaction, which is derived from the friends who use marijuana. So those are kind of some of like the signs, the symptoms, what actually happens to the body. So now we're going to talk about like the short and the long-term effects. So when marijuana is smoked, the THC is rapidly absorbed, especially in the brain and in the placenta. So it's important to understand this for pregnant women, especially with a placenta. And then behavioral effects occur immediately and they last 2 to 3 hours unless more is smoked. So depending on the potency as well, that can vary a little bit. And then in some people with heavy marijuana use, it can cause a lack of motivation and reduce productivity. Users can show lethargy, poor short-term memory, and difficulty with concentrating. So marijuana has been found to have a negative impact on critical thinking skills and the ability to make important decisions. So it's really important when we talk about marijuana use in college. So understanding that it can affect critical thinking skills as well as decision-making skills, memory, those are all very important things as we're college students. So definitely taking that into consideration, especially if you were to use marijuana before a class, while studying, or any reason like that. So we're going to go ahead and kind of move on to an activity with marijuana to kind of simulate what it's like to be high. So now we're going to do an activity that is going to kind of stimulate what it's like for your brain when you're sober versus if you are high. So what I'm going to do is I need you to pull out either a piece of paper and a pencil, or you can even just use the notes section of your phone, your computer, whatever you're on right now. But pulling that out and just coming up with a blank piece. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you 10 words, and then I need you to not write anything down, and then at the end, once I'm finished with all 10 words, write down as many as you can possibly remember. Okay? And then we'll see how many you remember at the end. So don't start writing until I'm finished with the 10 words. So paying attention, our 10 words are scholarship, pencil, computer, holiday, class, camp, teacher, brain, environment, exercise. So now write down as many as you can remember. And then we're going to do this entire activity over again, but we are going to have a volunteer come and help me who is going to help stimulate what it's like if you are high. So this is Kate, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to read you a different set of 10 words, but don't write anything down until I'm finished with the 10, and then write down as many as you can remember. Okay? So, allowance.
A, B,
Outline.
C, D, E,
Laptop.
F, G,
Trip.
H, I,
Location.
J, K, L,
Course.
M, N, O, P,
Coach.
Q,
Intellect.
R, S,
Setting.
T, U, V.
Workout. So looking at the amount of words that you got the first time versus the amount of words you got the second time, probably got less the second time. And that's because of the distraction, the disruptiveness of the noise. Obviously, you're not going to hear the ABCs in your mind while you're high, but marijuana is able to mess up those neurotransmissions to specific areas of the brain, specifically your normal information transfer in your memory. If you were trying to do homework or in a class or something like that, trying to pay attention is like trying to pay attention while the ABCs were being sang. So after that activity, we're going to talk a little bit about the policy on marijuana. So right now, marijuana or drug paraphernalia possession are both minor misdemeanors in the state of Ohio. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the state of Ohio and how that's different from BGSU. In the state of Ohio, possession must be less than 100 grams and for personal consumption only. It's not a jailable offense, but there is a fine, and if you're convicted, there's also a possible driver's license suspension. But when we talk about BGSU, so in Ohio, medical marijuana is legal if you have a medical marijuana card, which is prescribed by a physician for a certain amount and a certain type of marijuana. And then BGSU is a little bit different. Because BGSU is a federally funded institution, we have to follow federal laws. And federal law does not recognize or protect marijuana possession or use, and it can prosecute people who are otherwise protected under state laws. So in Ohio, recreational marijuana is illegal, but medicinal marijuana is legal. However, federally, they're both illegal. So understanding that if you were to even have a medical marijuana card, you would have to go off of BGSU's campus to obtain and use that marijuana and then return to campus. You cannot have it on campus. And marijuana is not approved by the FDA, which is why it's still illegal, because there's not been enough medical trials to prove that it's safe or effective for medical use. And it's impossible to kind of control the amount used and the potency of it. And the DEA lists marijuana as a Schedule I drug because of its potential for abuse. So understanding since marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, you cannot have it on BGSU's campus for any reason. And this could affect your federal financial aid because we are a federally funded campus and FAFSA is federally funded money. So if you were to get in trouble with marijuana, that can affect your FAFSA. And then also understanding if you do get in trouble with marijuana on BGSU's campus, we do have the MAP program, or the Marijuana Alternative Program, and that can help to dismiss the charges. So to be eligible, you must pay $150 for the program. You have to be a first-time offender, attend a drug education course and assessment, complete 6 hours of community service, complete 5 drug tests over several months, and they all have to come back clean. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it is able to get the charges dismissed off of your record. So kind of as an overarching theme, it's not allowed on BGSU's campus, no matter what, even if it were to become recreationally legal in Ohio. And so moving a little bit, we're going to talk about hemp next. So maybe thinking if you know anything about hemp. So hemp was legalized in Ohio in 2019, and hemp is defined as containing less than or equal to 0.3% cannabidiol. So hemp is going to be mostly that CBD product, which is that medicinal component of marijuana. However, it's not possible to isolate just the CBD, so there will also be trace amounts of THC in that product. So if you're using a CBD or a hemp product, that they are not going to make you feel that stereotypical high because they do not have enough THC to do that. However, they will provide a small amount of THC that can be detectable in your body. So if you typically use these products, the buildup of THC in your body and in your blood could potentially show positive on a drug test. So making sure that you're aware of that if you do choose to use hemp or CBD products. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about tobacco and Tobacco 21. So in July 2019, the governor signed a bill that increased the age at which you can buy tobacco and tobacco products from 18 to 21. So there was no grandfathering into this program, so you have to be 21 to buy things such as rolling papers, filters, and other smoking and vaping accessories. So understanding that and that there can be consequences if you are under the age of 21, just as there would be with alcohol. And then for our last little bit of this presentation, we're going to talk about prescription drugs. So we're going to do a kind of myth-fact activity again. And so I have a few different things that I'll read. You can tell me myth or fact, and then we can give you the answers. So our first question is, in terms of abuse, prescription medications are not safe alternatives to street drugs. So that would be a fact. They are not a safe alternative. Prescription medications can be just as harmful if they are not prescribed to you as a street drug. Our second question is, addiction can occur just as easily with prescription medications as it does with street drugs. So that is true. Addiction can occur just as easily with prescription medications as it does street drugs. Our next question is, possessing a prescription medication that belongs to someone else with a written prescription is a felony offense and punishable by jail time. So if you and somebody else have the same prescription, the same dosage and everything, it's saying that you cannot take theirs, even if it's the exact same thing. So that would be true. You cannot possess or take anybody else's prescription medication. That is punishable by jail time, and it's a felony. And so with that, just taking an active role in your medical care. So taking your prescriptions as written and never sharing your medications with anyone else. So our next question is, high school students have a higher likelihood of misusing prescription stimulants, often referred to as study drugs, when compared to college students. So that would be false. College students have a higher likelihood of misusing prescription stimulants or study drugs. Our next question is, some students use prescription stimulants in the belief that it may benefit their academic performance, but the non-medical use of stimulants has not been proven to do so. True or false? So that's true. So some students believe that prescription medications will benefit their academic performance, but that has not been proven if it's not prescribed to you. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about some negative outcomes that could happen if you were to take prescription drugs that were not prescribed to you, or in ways of misusing the prescription drugs that were prescribed to you. So some negative outcomes of prescription drug misuse among college students include missing classes, a lower grade point average, psychosis, hallucinations, paranoia, an increased risk for cardiac events, as well as loss of coordination and potentially addiction. So understanding these negative outcomes is very important, and understanding how to get other people help or get yourself help if necessary. So feel free to visit the BGSU Wellness Connection website again for those resources if you are in need of help or you know somebody who needs help. And then we're just going to kind of give some concluding statements here. So some of the important points from this presentation: we were able to identify the physical and mental effects of marijuana on the body. We were able to identify some resources on and off campus that students can contact for help. We identified some of the risks associated with high-risk drinking, understanding what a standard drink is. We understand predatory drugs, as well as the risks of mixing alcohol with other substances. And then we talked about BGSU's policy on marijuana and Ohio's policy on alcohol and marijuana, both of those actually. And so if you're interested in learning more or you have any other additional questions, feel free to visit the BGSU Wellness Connection website. We have some resources listed there. You can also choose to reach out to us via email, which is wellness@bgsu.edu, or you can choose to follow us on Twitter. We are at BGSU Wellness. So here's all of our contact information. And then I hope that you were able to learn something today about alcohol and other drugs. And I hope that you have a great day.